everyone, and welcome to a brand new spoiler review of Skeleton Crew here on Geek Bites, brought to you by the
Geek
Buddies.
Hey! It's been like a couple of days, and I feel like I forgot how to do all of this. Let's do it. This is great. I'm in that holiday haze. Are you in the holiday haze? I am.
I am, absolutely. Look, I am dragging so much butt. We're recording this on a Sunday morning. We're putting out a Monday morning, but I am drinking a latte just to wake my ass up. And you know, I'm not a coffee drinker, but every once in a while, I hit that wall where I need something. And today is one of those days for sure. But yes, happy holidays to everybody who's enjoying their holiday. Happy future New Year. We're a couple of days away from that happening as well. So thank you so much for joining us. We are breaking down episode 5. Here, you have a lot to learn about pirates, written by Byung-Jo Wesner, which is the first time they're writing an episode for this season rather than the two co-showrunners here. And this is directed by Drake Schreier, who directed the Thunderbolts movie that we will be seeing in just a few weeks here. So exciting to jump into this one. Michael, this one had shades of Raiders of the Lost Ark with decapitating lasers, spikes. We had Goonies with these treasures and trick roasts and trap doors. Pirates of the Caribbean with this treasure that's discovered, and a really dark move by Jude Law at the end of the episode here. And there's even a little bit of Hook with the kids dressing up as elders and what have you, and some comical moments and what have you. So your thoughts on this episode? What do you think overall before we dive into the specifics here?
This is my favorite episode of Skeleton Crew so far, and I've loved every episode of Skeleton Crew. I think this episode, we've been watching a lot of geek stuff, and we're going to be talking. I know later this week we're going to be reviewing season 3 of What If, and I think Skeleton Crew has nailed, like, they've just hit every mark exactly right for what you want. Like, they have deep Star Wars cuts, they have huge Easter eggs, it feels like the Star Wars universe, but it's fun and new and accessible. You don't have to have watched every episode of Clone Wars and Rebels to get it. And it's just a fun story, and it always puts character first. So even though this episode had everything that you said, we got like buried treasure. We found out what the mystery of At-Aten was. We had all of these cool adventurous things. We had tons of alien Easter eggs in the Star Wars universe. There was major character movement in this episode. All of our characters move forward. The parents move forward. Jod had a big heel turn at the end of this. The kids move forward. Like, everything was moving forward. I mean, this is a show that is literally firing on all cylinders. And as a Star Wars fan, I just sit here and marvel at the fact that when this was announced, nobody thought this was going to be the one that would really kind of bring all Star Wars fans together. As many Star Wars fans as you can. You're never going to get all Star Wars fans, but for the most part, I think everyone that we know that we're talking to is having an absolute blast watching this show, and it's just sort of a joy to watch.
Yeah, no, last episode, there were some people who didn't like it, felt it was too kiddie or whatever, but, I liked the last episode, but that was the only episode I remember in the first 4 that was had a little bit the old Star Wars toxicity coming back. But this episode was fantastic, just utterly fantastic. I love the pacing of this. I love the writing of this. I love the introduction of a new bounty hunter here in Pokkit. I hope Kelly MacDonald is now officially going to be part of the Star Wars universe in multiple versions of it, like multiple shows rather, or movies. I loved her immediately. I like the idea that we got some Hutts. We got this new creature there, who was taking a mud bath, and so stuff with the kids. I really loved how the chemistry with Jude Law and the kids continues and keeps changing and morphing and evolving as every episode goes on, so that when he made this turn at the end, it really was pretty harrowing to see an older man put a knife to a 10-year-old girl's neck. It's like, whoa, especially because last episode Fern had kind of crossed that line because he was there to save them from that civil war that was happening. So she even started to believe in him, and he turned on her so quickly there at the end. So it's just that kind of thing that I like about it. There's playfulness, there's slapstick or whatever, but the stakes, you're always reminded of the stakes by the end of the episode. And I appreciated that a lot in this one. This was very vibrant with some fun commentary about gentrification as well in this episode. from
Well,
Star
and I
Wars.
think to your point, I mean, I think one of the things that's interesting about people's reaction to Skeleton Crew, and I was just talking to somebody about this a few days ago, is
Mm,
I think people forget why they fell in love with Star Wars in the first place sometimes. And I think it's important to remember that when you were a little kid if you're in your 40s and you were a little kid in 1977,
yeah.
what you loved everything, but what you really loved was R2D2 beeping and C3PO calling him an idiot and banging him on the head. You really liked some of the goofier stuff. And
Yeah.
then you liked that the wisest of all Jedi was a Muppet and voiced by Miss Piggy.
Yeah.
And then you got to a certain age and you thought the Ewoks were too kiddie, but there was a bunch of kids that were right behind you that thought the Ewoks were the coolest thing in the world. And then when Phantom Menace came out, if you were a certain age, you thought pit droids and Jar Jar Binks were dumb. Like Star Wars is
Yeah.
a constant. You liked the things you liked as a kid. You get a little bit older, you like the older stuff, and then you don't like the kid stuff. But Star Wars always has the kid stuff. And I think Skeleton
Yeah.
Crew being a show that is unabashedly about kids sort of like has allowed adults to kind of go, okay.
Yeah.
And so a lot, because all the humor that's in this episode or in any of the episodes, all the kiddie humor that people are talking about, I
Yeah.
can point to anything in the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, the new
100%.
trilogy, or anything else and say it's there. But
Yeah.
to your point, what this show does is it has those moments, but then you get to the end with Jod having his heel turn.
Yeah.
And as an adult, you're like, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
That's fucked
Exactly.
up. And so it has both of those things, but I think at the end of the day, with the exception of Andor and Rogue One, which we all love and I think is amazing, I think
Yeah.
almost all Star Wars has an element of kiddie humor to it, and that's just part of what Star Wars is.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Even Empire Strikes Back has elements of that in certain moments, with Yoda and Luke at the beginning when he's hitting him with the stick and all of that. So there is humor, even though there's serious stuff that occurs right afterwards, and it's the balance, right? That's the same movie where a father is cutting off the hand of his child there in revealing who he is to his screaming child before he falls down event. So
But
it's
I
like,
think,
you
and
gotta have the
I think what you just nailed it. I didn't think about it that way, even though we were just talking about it. I think what makes Star Wars work when Star Wars works the best,
yeah.
and I think this is why Skeleton Crew is really working for me, is that Star Wars is at its best when it has something that is so silly and childlike and kiddie, and then 2 seconds later does something super dark and upsetting. It's the same reason why we love Disney villains that are actually scary. Like, I think when you have something that feels safe and fun and isn't this adorable, and then 2 seconds later, Darth Vader cuts off Luke's hand,
Yeah.
you're like, that's what Star Wars is. Like, it is you're telling me a fairy tale and then it got too real. And I
Right.
think that Skeleton Crew has that. And and this episode has that for sure, which is why I
100%.
loved it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're right, Mike. And that's why the clashing of tones is so difficult to do and get right organically in a show or movie. And I agree with you. Skeleton Crew is absolutely nailing it here. So let's get into the specifics of the show itself. I'm going to take a quick section, Michael, right at the beginning here. We open with Neil's mom, Numa, and Wim's dad, Wendell, working together to get a barrier access code. But when Wendell gets caught, he's brought before Fern's mom there, Farah, who is not too happy about it. Has the security droid delete its records and shut down. Kara and Wendell then argue about whether her route with the supervisor is better than the route that him and Numa are taking. But conspicuously absent from all this is KB's two moms. So this is the opening scene. So talk to me about this, because we haven't had much with the parents. I'm sorry about that. We haven't had much with the parents, but now we get a little bit of time with the parents. What are your thoughts about this and the way it went down and what we're leading to here?
This is classic 80s movie. Like,
Yeah.
Wim's dad he was kind of the asshole, not the asshole, but he was the absentee parent, wasn't paying a lot of attention to Wim,
Yes.
told him to grow up, did his thing. Now Wim's gone. He's feeling really guilty about it. And you're seeing him, what you're seeing is the kid's absence, even though this is like a tragic thing for the parents, is causing the parents to actually get cooler.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
the parent, like, in kid world, like the parents are getting cool. The parents are now breaking the rules. The parents are doing all the stuff they've always told their kids not to do. Like, they're breaking the rules. They're doing things. Even the fact, and I thought this was really cute, when that very creepy camera droid walks up to Wim's dad and he's like, "Show me what's behind your back." His dad does the ultimate kid move. What is this? No, this hand? You need to show me both your hands at the same time, sir. So in a way, it's showing that the parents are starting to act more like kids. And
Yeah.
in the classic Amblin sort of 80s vibe, acting like a kid is the coolest thing you can do. Like the only way you're going to survive the adventure is to use kid logic, never grown-up logic. That's what works in Stranger Things. That is a classic 80s trope that kids are kind of smarter than adults. So when he goes in front of Fern's mom,
Yeah.
and she was doing the adult thing. She had put in a request to speak to the supervisor. She was going to go through the proper channels and say, I would really like to request this. But then she shuts down the droid, wipes the droid, just like we saw Fern do. And then she kind of gets in. She's like, all right, you guys, I told you I would handle it. And he's like, how's that going? And she's like, all right, what's the plan? What are we doing? So you're seeing them sort of break the rules that ostensibly the adults of At-Atten have been following for generations. And so also in just classic movie structure, these kids going on the adventure, when they come back home at the end of this, not only will they have been changed, but their home will also have been changed for the better. Like, so I think that it's following all the 80s tropes, but it was just a really fun scene. And it's, even though we don't get a ton with the parents, every scene that we get with the parents is definitely moving their story along at a nice clip.
Yeah, I like it too. I like to look. The only negative thing I have to say about this is about not having enough time with the parents is I think they're all wonderful actors. And so I would like to have more time with them, but I'm not complaining about the story and how it's structured and what you were alluding to, Michael. This is classic structure and it makes sense because we don't have to work as much with the parents. We don't spend as much time with the parents because it's called Skeleton Crew, not the parents of the Skeleton Crew. And so we just have to touch on certain things. And these actors, I think, are doing a lot with the limited amount of screen time that they get. You immediately understand what their intentions are, what their points of views are, what they're doing in breaking the rules, how they're trying to break the rules. And I also like the look of this office, right? This is not like what we saw on Coruscant and Andor. This is an office with cubicles, but it seems like a little bit of an older office, like one of those 70s offices with carpets and shit. So I like that element of design is there as well. And yes, I like Wendell taking the more assertive tone. I like Wendell being the one who's like, we got to do these things. We got to make this thing happen. And Fire's the one that's like, no, we got to do this. We got to do that. We got to take control. But then realizing they got to work together to figure this out because no one's coming to save their kids. You know, I love that. All right, so let's move back to the ship here. KB has rerouted SM-33's memory chip, so he doesn't kill them. And after Jode and Kara go at each other a little bit, they turn SM-33 on, and he tells a story of Captain Tak Rennod. Jode knows who this is and realizes the ship is the Onyx Cinder, which went missing during Captain Tak Rennod's hunt for the treasure on At-Atten. SM-33 reveals that the coordinates for At-Atten are hidden in Rennod's secret lair in Skull Ridge Mountain. He tells him the story of the deadly mutiny that occurred with Tak Rennod. There's a funny exchange about a concubine and what that means. And then Wim goes off on his own. And when Jode finds him, he reluctantly tries to comfort him and comfort Wim in his tears over the reality of how taxing an adventure can be. Wim is scared and confused, and he misses his dad. And when Jode tells him to forget attachments, the old Jedi logic there, Wim questions him about his use of the Force, which Jode deflects, but he does tell him something that's really interesting, Mike. He tells him that his focus determines his reality. So let's stop there. Your thoughts on the back and forth with them around SM-33, finding the coordinates, the Tak Rennod story, and then Jode being recruited as the reluctant soother of Wim here.
Well, first, just a really good storytelling writing moment. At the end of last episode, SM-33 was a killer robot, and he was going to kill the kids, and he was a huge threat, and it was super scary, and they shut him down. At this episode, right off the bat, you cut to the kids, and KB's like, I rerouted his memory. That should be fine. And then he wakes up, and he's back to SM-33. And nobody cares that was a super easy plot device because we are instantly flooded with information that we wouldn't have gotten. Like, I don't need to see an episode of SM-33 being a killer robot. We got the cool moment. Tell me you rerouted it. Let's move on with the story. And it's a good tip for like any aspiring writers out there that is, as long as what you are giving us is really, really good and you're moving the plot and the story forward, we will always accept an easy, okay, We figured that out. We moved on.
Right.
Because what we get is good. What we get is Captain Flint from Treasure Island. What we get is One-Eyed Willie from Goonies. We get the classic story of the old-timey captain who had like his eye on this lost treasure and he knew where it was and then he mysteriously disappeared. And what's particularly funny is that Jod thinks this is the greatest thing in the world and the kids are kind of like, cool. And he's like, do you guys understand how cool this is? And they're like, cool. Like, we just really want to get on. We don't care. But it's like this is going like full pirate legend. And it's really, really cool. Just a lot of really rich stuff. A lot of stuff that, as we've been talking about it, because the Treasure Island and Goonies references are so big in the story. It's not like anything we heard here was like earth shattering, but just getting the captain's name, like finding out like the details was good. But then this whim scene with Whim and Jod was really, really interesting because they are playing a really fun game with us about, is Jod a Jedi or not?
Yes.
Or has Jod had a level of Jedi training or not? Like, the kids have voiced their doubt. Like, Fern is like, he's not a Jedi. There's 1,000 ways he could have done that. We saw Kumail Nanjiani and Obi-Wan use magnets to, like, look like he was using the Force. So there's a ton of ways he could be faking it. But when he says, your focus determines your reality, that is word for word, verbatim, what Liam Neeson says to Anakin in Phantom. Like, it is literally what Liam Neeson said. So the fact that he's said that, I believe, twice now, and that he's, especially in this episode, really kind of casually using the Force in a bunch of different ways, I think he's got a really, really interesting story here. Like, I mean, my guess is that he had some level of Jedi training and then dipped out and just kind of took off for his own. But even aside from the directness of the quote of your focus
determines your reality.
Determines your reality. His advice to Whim is Jedi Council advice.
Yeah.
Like, Whim's like, I miss my parents, and he's like, get rid of attachments, walk away. Which is like what you would say if you were a pirate who had like turned on your whole family and gone off on your own. But it's also exactly what the Jedi teach, and what, in my opinion, is the most problematic part of the Jedi Council and their teachings, because I think it's 100% wrong. But that's Jedi stuff. So the entire scene, in addition to being just a lovely scene where Jod was trying in his best piratey way to comfort Whim, it was just a very full, like, okay, what the fuck is Jod? Where is his Jedi levels or his Force levels? Like, what's going on? And I'm just, they are doing a good job, because I'm not frustrated that they're not giving us the answer, but the way that they keep sort of teasing it, I think, is really, really fun. And I can't wait to find out.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Tack Rennod stuff. I love that as the old-timey pirate story. It's almost a commentary on original trilogy people versus new Star Wars fans.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Because the original trilogy be like, this was a great, and new trilogy fans are like, yeah, great, cool. Let's move on to the next thing. We don't know who Leia is. We don't know who Carrie Fisher is. Like, that's the thing that sometimes you combat with new Star Wars fans who don't have as much connection to the original trilogy. So I love that as a low-key maybe commentary underneath it all. But yes, the idea of the illusion of One-Eyed Willie, these kinds of stories, I think is great as well. But it leading to this moment with Whim and Joe, I thought was excellent. I mean, Joe does not want to comfort this kid. He doesn't, like, you see the close of him going, that he has to go and do it. He knows he has to go and do it, but doesn't want to do it. And I said this in the Jedi Way review. To me, it's very similar to Kanan Jarrus and Ezra in that it's the reverse, like the flip side of the coin, where Kanan wanted to school Ezra, and he was probably a person, and he was clearly a Padawan who's, we find out his master had been killed at a young age for him as a Padawan. So he kind of had to figure out his life. We know from the book that he became a drunk for a little bit, but then found his way back to being able to use the Force. Jod may have had his master killed, Order 66, whatever. And so he has kind of been lost and then figuring out how to scrounge a life out, because they don't take all these kids from really good, affluent, normal, relaxed they take them from wherever they can find them, and they pass the muster. But it doesn't mean that if you remove their teaching that they somehow stay the course. So I like that Jod has a possible Jedi background, that the training maybe wasn't finished. So he's kind of used it to stay alive in the universe. And how are the kids going to change him down the road? It's going to be fascinating, because clearly he does care about them to a level, but does he care about them enough to make a sacrifice to save
Although
them? I don't know. Yeah.
Jod's too young to have had a Jedi Master. Like you just said it like that.
You think so?
Well, like I'm just trying to do the math right now, but
He's in his
like
50s, isn't he?
he's Jude Law's how old is Jude Law?
Jude Law is, I think, 65 years. No, how old is Jude?
Get out of here.
Jude Law is
out.
52 years old. 52. He is not too young to have had a Jedi Master. If they got him at 7 years old.
Well, Revenge of the Sith is when Order 66 happens.
Yeah.
And that's 18 years. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay. Yeah, I guess.
Maybe.
Sure. Maybe. We'll see.
It's just a theory. It's just a theory. I don't know if it's true or not. Yeah.
No, I wasn't saying that to be like you're wrong. I was kind of thinking the same thing in my head, but then as you said Order 66, I was like, well, wait a minute. How old? But I guess you're right. I mean, I just think of Jude Law as perpetually younger than he is, I guess.
Well, because he carries that energy.
Because he's so handsome.
He is. And because he works with the kids so well. I like that as well. All right, let's move on. We get to Skull Ridge Mountain, Michael, on Lanupa, and this is Star Wars gentrification to a T with its pleasure yachts that remind me of Lando Calrissian's yachts and grandiose spas. And Jode is excited. SM-33 is horrified here. The planet, because of what he remembers from the planet doesn't allow children, so the kids dress up as elders, which I think is a very funny moment. We see them there from the Bratrick system, which I think is just a cute 1980s kid sequence to see them dressed up like that. They don't allow weapons. So they take Jode's knife, but he uses the Force to get his weapon back. But SM-33 is incapacitated with that thing they put on his body. But, Michael, we also hear about the banking clan. If there's anything that survives multiple republics and changes in power in any system, country, universe, galaxy, it is the effing banking clan here. So they are on high alert on this planet for spies and imposters. And if the banking clan is conducting business on the same planet where the Hutts we see go to laze about here, when we see the Hutts, this picture of the Hutts there, there is more than meets the eye. Jode uses Old Republic credits to bribe the receptionist to get her to to get him under a separate reservation as a professor. But as he's checking in, Michael, we get ourselves Pokkit, Kelly McDonald, an old friend of his who recognizes Jode by another name, Dash Zenton, which Fern and I think Neil comment on. And we gather from the dialogue that she's a bounty hunter and a member of the guild like Din Djarin. She might be Umbaran as well, who are known for their pale skin and white colorless eyes. She talks about Jode leaving her for dead some time ago, though she swears there's no bad blood between them and that she's only interested in unwinding on Lanupa. But as she leaves, she tells the children, using a Huttie slang, to not trust this Slimo. So what are your thoughts about them arriving on Lanupa, everything that goes on with the kids, the bribing here, but also the arrival of Pokkit in here to confront Jod?
Everything about Lanupa was great. Lanupa is Canto Bite done correctly.
Oh,
I think.
Great point.
And look, I love Last Jedi. I will defend Last Jedi, whatever. And I think like the Canto Bite scene is a really good concept. And if you've played Star Wars Outlaws, Canto Bite is a great planet to have in the Star Wars galaxies, in the galaxy. But Canto Bite always feels a little bit off. You're kind of like, what are you doing? It's a little silly. It's a little cheesy. Lanupa is literally the same thing. Like, here is a super wealthy place for the super rich in the galactic, in the galaxy. There's lots of excess. It's all people just relaxing and being super rich. It literally is sort of the same thing as Canto Bite, but everything here worked right because I just think the story of them, what they needed to do, why they needed to go there, was a lot cleaner. Whereas in Canto Bite, it was sort of like Maz Kanata was like, go meet the guy with the rose, and then they don't meet the guy with the rose. But like, it just got very confusing and kind of messy. But everything here, it's like the same gag. I think one of the things that makes it work right off the bat is SM-33's pissiness.
Yes.
That his awesome pirate super hideout with the cool, scary name is now like a rich people spa. And him complaining the entire time, the comedy is just gold. Like SM-33's reaction to literally every single thing that happens, particularly once they put the restraining bolt on him and he keeps trying to attack people and getting electrocuted every time he does it. Like, it is just comedy gold the entire time. But yeah, Lanupa is great. I mean, this is like, ever since George Lucas did the Mos Eisley Cantina, everyone always tries to do their take. And Canto Bight is Rian Johnson's version of the Mos Eisley Cantina. Even some people dinged George Lucas in Return of the Jedi because they felt Jabba's palace wasn't as cool as the Mos Eisley Cantina. Jabba's palace, I think, is the coolest thing in the world. But every time, like, where are you going to do your big, let's show off a bunch of aliens doing cool alien things? And so when you get to Lanupa and you see all the aliens in the spa and you see the one Hutt sibling from Book of Boba Fett, there in the mud bath, and you see all of the banking clan and the Ithorians and everybody just like spying it up. Like, this is the new version of the Mos Eisley Cantina, and it's just a blast to watch. And then story-wise, him calling them from the Bratrick galaxy or the Bratrick planet using brat because he thinks they're little brats. Super silly and cute. Them walking around in those little robes is absolutely adorable. Like, it's just silly fun. But again, seeing Jod just use the Force very casually to get his thing back, you're like, okay, like, he's using the Force. Yeah. Like, he's using the Force. And then again, Pokkit showing up. Everyone always tries to have that, like, let's have a bounty hunter show up and have people instantly think they're cool and badass the way that everybody flipped out about Boba Fett. And Bosk and IG-88 in Empire Strikes Back. And and like a lot of times you try and do it and you're like, yeah, you're trying too hard. You're trying too hard. And I don't know what it was about Pokkit, but it just worked. I think it was because it was just so tied to the story. Like, she created a perfect obstacle. Things were going good. Yeah. Jod was getting a room. Everything was good. And then she shows up and she said, remember when you left me for dead? Cool. No hard feelings. Hope you have a good time. Don't trust this Slimo. Gets out of there. And you're like, oh shit, like, they're fucked. And Jod's reaction to that being like, we're fucked. Like, it just worked really well. And she was just, what you said, I completely agree with. I was like, oh, Pokkit's cool. Yeah. I'm super down for like the Pokkit spin-off comic and Pokkit showing up in Mandalorian. Like, I'm super down for all of it in the very brief time that she was in, assuming she didn't get, burned by acid at the end. We'll see.
Oh yeah, with the pirates, yeah. No, I think so. I don't think you bring in Kelly McDonald and kill her off screen. I hope not. And look, she's got a resume on screen in theatrical films and on TV, Boardwalk Empire, Train Spotting. So I think it'd be fun to see Kelly be a part of this film they got coming down the road for the Mandalorian. So it'd be funny because all these references that she's making about the guild in this back and forth with Jod, I don't think that's an accident. I think that's on purpose to let you know that she's part of these guilds, has been part of the guild. So she could pop up in that Mandalorian and Grogu movie, which would be a lot of fun to see her be a part of that as well. Yeah, I like this whole sequence in the beginning. Again, a good mixture of the kid humor with them dressing up and talking in gibberish. And also, I can't resist saying that, Brat, like you said, Brat Summer. I don't know. It's like a smart move all around. And then having him use the bribing. You see that thing that really works. That's relatable. That's universal. Using the Old Republic's credit to get what he needed. Yeah.
It's universal, but it's also a plot point. Like, he has to use all of their credits so that at the end he only has the one. Like, so again, it's just good storytelling. Like, you're right. It's relatable. He's got to keep bribing her, give her all the money. She'll let him stay. But it also gets rid of all their credits, which is an important story plot point.
Yeah, 100%. And it makes sense how they're getting rid of all the credits with the way he's doing things. So Pokkit coming in, I love this as a fly in the ointment. We don't see it coming, but the back and forth, and it gives the kids even more reason to doubt him now a little again with a new name coming in here, Dash Zenit, that apparently no one's ever heard of. So he clearly made up this name with her. So this idea of him betraying people all over the galaxy is also something to consider, as everyone keeps telling them not to trust him. So all of these move the plot forward, move the character stuff forward overall here. And then a cool new planet. I think that's fun to see in the world of Star Wars. So
we're definitely going to see, like, I'll tell you right now, we are going to see a whole bunch of Lanupa in the next 10 years of Star Wars. Like, it's Lanupa hit and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, just the idea that the mud baths used to be acid pits where they killed everybody. I mean,
SM-33 for the win. He's really going up my list of droids week by week. Yeah. Like, he's closing in on K2SO real fast.
Shout out to Nick Frost. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the last part of here of the episode. As you said, they check into their suite. There's a back and forth with Judd and the kids are dancing around and being kids and playing pillow fighting and whatever. But Fern questions Judd about what happened with Pokkit. He deflects it, saying they need to get to the coordinates because they're in trouble. The pirates are coming. Brutus is probably being alerted, and he's right because we see Pokkit telling Brutus that they are on the planet. Judd, now they separate into separate crews here. Judd, Neil, and KB investigate the upper levels. Fern, SM33, and Wim investigate the lower levels. But Judd, KB, and Neil get confronted by the guards, and we get a little slapstick humor. And KB using a wrench to knock out some of these guards with mud and whatever. But Fern and Wim befriend a guest by the name of Cathalops here, which I think is an awesome design here, Michael, voiced by Patrick Seitz, who helps them go underground in exchange for a story about their adventures. Brutus and his crew arrive on Lanupa, kill a bunch of Lanupas, and now we get to, in my opinion, the Raiders of the Lost Ark Goonie section of the episode with red decapitating lasers, booby traps, magnetized spikes, which one of the Lanupan guards falls prey to after he's shot from behind, pools of deadly acid. But there is also room with an inscription here that all who enter must make the greatest sacrifice. And then, Michael, what you were alluding to with the treasure, John figures it out, uses the Force to drop that treasure in the middle of the pool, and the acid flows out of the room. And as they investigate the room, Wim spots a lightsaber on a pedestal. Neil spots a trap roast, which lights up a captain's log, and SM30 is able to access the data port and locate the coordinates for Atten. So there we go. We've got the coordinates. Judd then orders SM33 to refill the pool with acid, which kills whatever pirates they might be killed off screen. Maybe Jaleel White, maybe Pokkit, we don't know, and questions him about the treasure on Atten. And finally, the mystery of Atten is revealed. It is the last remaining Old Republic mint. It truly is a planet of eternal treasure. Fern knows Judd will want that treasure, tries to order him to stand down, but he challenges her to a duel for control of the ship. She yields only after initially fighting back and a comical attempt by Wim to turn on the lightsaber. Judd orders SM33 to take the children hostage with mutinous intent against the captain, but Wim makes use of the trapdoor quickly, and they escape. And the episode ends with Judd picking up the lightsaber, and we hear it ignite in a black frame without knowing what color the lightsaber is. So fascinating stuff here, Michael. Your thoughts on this end sequence with this Raiders of the Lost Ark Goonies type of energy going on, the pirates coming in, but then Judd turning on the crew, almost killing Fern, and then the kids escaping and Judd turning on that lightsaber.
I mean, just a lot of fun back and forth. Like, you know, Jod and Neil and KB up at the top, and their whole thing with the guards was like super fun and cute. But then getting down to Fern and Wim and finding out that Cathalops, which I think is Star Wars version of Cthulhu, Cathalops is this big threatening thing, was actually just this nice guy. Liked the story. Hearing the story. Like, it was like, it's one of those great turns that you're like, okay, that's cute, that's fun. And him being like, don't trust this guy. But that getting them into the bottom, where we get into, like you said, full Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones Last Crusade Goonies mode. And I like how they did like their Star Wars take on stuff. Like, I particularly like the magnetized, like sort of like, as opposed to falling into the pit with the spikes at the bottom, you get into an anti-grav thing that sends you up to the top. Like, I don't think I've seen that before in anything, like using like the fact that we're in Star Wars and we're in a sci-fi world to sort of literally take the traditional pirate trap and turn it upside down. I thought was a lot of fun. So I thought they did a really good job. You know, it felt fresh and different, even though we all knew we were going to get here. We all knew we were going to go through the pirate booby traps, but they got through it pretty quick and they had a lot of fun with it, which I thought was nice. I particularly like the fact that the kids were so short that they wouldn't have gotten their heads chopped off anyways. That really made me laugh. So a lot of really good stuff there. And getting into the acid pool part, you know, I mean, I thought that was a cool way to play the riddle, that like the kids were like, oh, like someone has to sacrifice their life. That is the most valuable thing of all. And him being like, you don't get pirates. Like, life, we don't give a shit. Money, that's important. And then getting into this big treasure chamber, this is just right out of Goonies. This was One-Eyed Willie in the Star Wars universe. Like, it was even when Jod was like, don't touch anything, it was just like Mikey on One-Eyed Willie's ship being like, don't touch this. This is Willie's, which when the Fratellis touch it is what sets everything off into motion. It's like the final booby trap. And we do see that, like, same thing here. Like, even with Neil finding the roast, that the whole place is booby trapped. But then when you do finally find the port, and we get like we like access Rennod stuff. A couple really interesting things. Anyone who's read the High Republic books, like, so Rennod's symbol is like these 2 lightning bolts.
Right.
And in the High Republic books, the big villains, because we don't have the Empire and we don't have stormtroopers and we don't have anything, are the Nihil, who are a bunch of pirates led by this guy named Marchion Ro. But their symbol is like 3 lightning bolts that are slashed. So the fact that this big ancient pirate that is legendary has these 2 slashes, a lot of High Republic fans are like, oh, are we going to get some kind of High Republic Nihil nod here? Which is just a cool Easter egg. It's not necessarily important to the story, but it's kind of cool because currently in the High Republic, the big pirates are the Nihil. But yeah, and then we get the answer about what is At-Aten, and the fact that it's the mint makes perfect sense. It's not the most mystical or magical thing, but it does make sense. Like, it is a planet that is literally minting money. And you see Fern's reaction to that knowledge because she knows exactly how Jada's going to react. And when he turns around, and they've done such a nice job of this. I mean, even Shannon, he's not here today, but it was in the last week's episode where he was like, I wished we had had one more episode where we really saw him be sweet and nice before they hugged him. But I think now we're seeing why they did it the way they did. It was like episode 3, Kim was like, don't trust this guy. Episode 4, he does kind of save them and get them out of a jam. And they're like, okay, we think we can trust you. In this episode, we have both Catholips and Pokkit be like, don't trust this guy. And then we find out, don't trust this guy. And he turns around and he does it in like, when he says, I want to challenge the captain. And it's so, to your point, like, they did just such a great job with this entire sequence where SM-33 is like, yeah, okay, it's a challenge. This is pirate rules. We doing it. And the way he looks at Fern and he's like, just yield. I don't want to hurt you.
Yeah.
It's very matter of fact. It's like, he's like, look, you're a kid. I don't want to hurt you, but I think it plays on every kid's fear that adults can hurt them. And like, there's just like, you just don't hurt kids is sort of an unwritten rule. But in this moment, he's like, I will kill you if I have to, as long as you say yield, we're good. And her refusing to do it, like, that was a tense moment. And the kids kind of really like all being shocked and all not quite knowing what to do. And then I think this might be one of my favorite moments in all Star Wars is Wim grabbing that lightsaber. Because as a Star Wars fan who has loved Star Wars from the moment that I was a kid, when he grabbed the lightsaber and showed up, I was like, okay, Wim, he doesn't know what he's doing, but he's going to turn that lightsaber on. We're going to get that awesome moment where a kid turns on like, I was sold. Like, I was in the moment. And when he turned that thing on upside down and screamed and threw it, I literally was all alone on my couch watching, and I laughed out. Like, I lost it. Like, I thought it was so funny and unexpected, but also 100% what Wim would do.
Yes.
Like, it is like, this is, Wim really wants to be that Jedi, and just once again, it didn't happen. And then Wim's solution of getting them out of there by going down the trap door after seeing what some of the other traps have done, I don't know that that's the choice I would have made, but given that we have several more episodes, I'm pretty sure they're not all dead down there. But then again, to your point with who is Jod, what is he doing? When he turns on that lightsaber and we get that final moment, you're like, okay, the maybe not Jedi pirate guy now knows where At-Aten is, knows that it's the mint, has SM-33 with him, and he's got a lightsaber. So where we're going next is absolutely anybody's guess, but like, I am so sold on this show.
Yeah. I thought there were some great character beats in these final sections of the show here. I mean, KB using the wrench, I thought was so smart. I mean, she has only certain moments to show what she can do. She rerouted SM-33 at the beginning, as you said, the good plot point there. But here in this moment, uses that wrench when they're discounting her, and she helps them out and takes care of business. Later, when with Neil, it makes all the sense in the world that he would spot the roast, because what has Neil been talking about? Food, missing the food, missing. So it makes sense that he would spot the roast and then realize it's not real or whatever, it's a trap door and what have you. So I like that. And of course, Wim would see the lightsaber, because Wim, we know from the first episode, was simulating lightsaber with his figures, than himself and Neil having those lightsaber fights, but he has no concept of how to use one. And so it makes all the sense in the world. Although we could get caught up for a moment thinking, oh my God, is he going to have a heroic moment? Having it turn like that, I agree with you, Michael. It was genius. So much fun. So smart. Having him run under the table out of fear was great. So that when he grabs the lightsaber, and some people have been referencing the look of the lightsaber, it might be a High Republic because of some of the gold in the hilt.
It is a High Republic lightsaber.
Okay, so you're saying it is
that, like, well, because even if you look like, I mean, even if you have not read any of the High Republic books, like in the Acolyte, the Jedi are just dressed in white and gold. Everything is white and gold.
Oh, that's a good point.
In modern Star Wars, white and gold is not the vibe. So the fact that it was like this gold-plated, very nice look, even at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, one of the lightsabers that you can buy in the whole lightsaber thing that you can do there is a security and defense. I forget what it's called, but it is a High Republic era lightsaber that looks almost exactly like the lightsaber that Wim picked up.
Yeah. See, so it seems like it is that. That gives even more mystery to Jude, and not knowing what color the lightsaber is in terms of the lightsaber itself. I think is going to be an interesting mystery when we go into the next episode to see where he lands in all this. But the turn is done so well. I mean, so well, because we're on board with Jude throughout this episode, especially coming out of the last episode. And yes, everyone's telling us not to trust him, but he's with the kids. He's helping the kids. He's trying to get to this stuff. We see him reading that inscription, the old Sith language, and the episode just moves right past it. So I wonder if we're going to come back to that or not. But then when we get to that moment, the turn Jude Law makes, and this is why you cast someone like Jude Law, because when he makes that turn, you as a viewer, before the kids know, immediately know what's about to happen. And someone was asking, like, why would he do it now? Just like everything else, he didn't try to get out of that cell until he knew he had a ship he could get out with the kids. And in this moment, he turns on the kids because he knows he needs SM-33 to be on his side. Now that SM-33 revealed that he goes with whoever is the captain of the ship. So he uses the old code in order to defeat Fern. And then now he has SM-33, as you said earlier. Yeah.
It makes sense. We have had countless Marvel shows. We had The Acolyte. We are going to talk about What If Season 3 later this week. But we've had countless examples where you watch something and you're like, huh? Why would they do that? What? Okay, that was a choice. And what's great and enjoyable about Skeleton Crew is exactly what you said. Like, it all makes sense. Like, a character does something and you're like, yes, that is, you have given me information about this character, and given the information that you have given me, what they just did makes absolute sense. And it's just so fun to watch.
Yeah, agreed. Anything more to wrap up here, Michael? I think we've covered all the points. Anything we missed? Any Easter eggs? Anything you want to make sure we hit before we wrap up our spoiler review here of episode 5?
Well, the one thing I think is important, and I'll be really curious to see where it goes, is they answered one mystery, but they sort of gave us another. Like, they answered what At-Atten was. We still have the mystery of what Jod is, but they didn't show us Captain Rennod's face.
Oh, yes.
Like, very clearly, they did not show us. Like, you could have easily been like, okay, here's this alien in a pirate hat, and that's Captain Rennod. But they very clearly, it was all, sort of like obscuring the face. It was glitchy. And I have to think that that's a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what that thing is. I don't know who Captain Rennod is.
Yeah.
I've seen some guesses on Twitter and online that I'm not going to repeat because I think maybe, I don't know, I just don't want to repeat them yet. But because I think it's a fun mystery, but I think the mystery of who Captain Rennod is feels like it might still be either that, or they're just like saving that because someone at Lucasfilm was like, let's not fill him in yet, we'll do it later. But it feels like it's not shown for a reason. So I'll be curious to see how that all pans out.
Yeah, and I've seen people say like Rennod is Donner spelled backwards, and we know the Donner Party and cannibalism and all of that. So what's the connection there? If that's even element of it?
Or Richard Donner directed the Goonies.
Richard Donner, sure, for the Goonies, but yeah, that too.
But maybe it's the Donner clan. Maybe it's not the guy who directed the movie that this entire show is based on. Sure, let's go cannibal.
Hey, listen, he said, John said life wasn't important to pirates, so Eating people can't be that smart all day. But you're probably right. I'm sure it's Richard Donner. But yeah, but good stuff. Yeah, I thought this was a great episode. Very much looking forward to seeing what we're going to get next. And the mysteries continue with John because we've solved one. And I think the parents doing what they're doing is leading us to a confrontation where the parents battle Jod for possibly control of the kids or helping the kids out of the situation. So I think we're building to that confrontation down the road as they acquire more agency in trying to find out what's going on with or where their kids are. So I think that's what we're leading to too. But I mean, John, as you just said, he is now formidable. He has a ship, an old school Onyx Cinder ship. He has SM-33. He has a lightsaber, and he's got the coordinates. So that's got to be the next stop at Adnet. Maybe next.
Well, yeah,
episode.
I mean,
yeah,
like what he's got nothing in his way. Like he's we're at episode 5 and there's 8 episodes.
Yeah, 8 episodes. Yeah.
So we have 3 more episodes left, but like if I were him, I would take SM-33 and I'd get on the Onyx Cinder and I would beeline for Ad-Atten.
Right.
But the kids meanwhile are somewhere.
Yeah.
They landed, and are they going to team up with Brutus? There's a bunch of moving pieces here, and I'm just it's just fun. Like it's just a fun adventure in the Star Wars universe, and that's refreshing.
I agree. And I wonder if they'll line up with Pokkit. Maybe Pokkit gets him off the planet. I don't know. Possible. All right, well, there you go. That's our spoiler review here for episode 5 of Skeleton Crew. Of course, sadly, unfortunately, Shannon couldn't join us due to scheduling issues, but I hope you felt we handled everything we need to handle here on this particular episode. If not, let us know down in the comments section below. Michael, what do we have to tell them?
Well, if you would like to follow us, you can do so on Twitter at Geek_Buddies, on Instagram at _Geek_Buddies. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, you can do so at The Rocha Says. If you would like to follow me, you can do so at MKToon. And while you're doing all that following, you can also smash that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, check out all the amazing content he's got there. Leave your comments below. What are you thinking of Skeleton Crew? How is it stacking up to your favorite Star Wars? Where do you think things are going? Who is Captain Rennod? What is Jog gonna do? Is he a Jedi? Is he not? What color's that lightsaber? Leave your thoughts below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and some comments so we go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your social, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies. The Geek Buddies.
There you go. And of course, if you missed our main episode, we dropped it yesterday. And if you want to look for a what if, that will be coming in a day or two, our review of the entire season of season 3 of What If. So we still got a lot of stuff as we go into the new year here for the Geek Buddies on the Outlaw Nation channel. So for my partner, Michael Vogel, I'm the Outlaw John Rocha. Take care of yourselves. Be well. And we'll see you next time with another brand new spoiler review of Skeleton Crew for On the Geek Bites, brought to you by the
Geek
Buddies.